I'm Dave Lynch. I'm the secretary of the Washington Outdoor Sportsmen's Club, based out of Washington D.C. Today is November the 11th, 2017, and I'm honored to be in the presence of some current and past members of the Washington Outdoor Sportsmen's Club to try to bring back some recollections and talk a little bit about the history of this great club. I'd like to start out by introducing our past and present members, starting from my left.
Vic Hardiman. Next.
Bill Johnson.
Archie Pritchett.
Ed Crook.
Alex Thompson.
Robert Bookhart.
Wesley McCutcheon.
One of the great things about this get-together, it took a long time to organize, get folks into this one spot so we could talk about some of the good old times we've had. I've been a member since about 1992. Some of the members, past members, were founding members. Mr. Bookhart, for example, Mr. Pritchett, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Hardiman. There's a rich history here, and we're hoping that through storytelling and reminiscing over photographs and telling old stories from back in the day, we'll really get a chance to understand the greatness of this club and really how it got started and hopefully where we want to go in the future. Just wanted to pose a question to Mr. Bookhart about maybe what your earliest remembrances of the Washington Outdoor Sportsmen's Club might be.
I never forget, we was all out hunting that afternoon, and one of our old members, he also, his hunting stand wasn't too far from mine, and all at once, he hollered out, "Oh, God, damn, son, what's the matter? Help me, call, help. So what happened, a bear ran across in front of him, and that frightened the devil out of him, and he wanted somebody to come in and help him. I said, nobody not gonna help you. If you can't help yourself, what we gonna do with that bear? and we laughed about that for quite a while.
That's quite a story. I tell you, we got so many recollections of the club and the camaraderie and the membership. I was told by the gentleman who brought me into the club back in the 90s, a man by the name of Willis Cox, who was also a founding member, that their hunting experience not only included hunting in Virginia, but all the way up and down the East Coast, down into North Carolina, joining with some of the other clubs. Mr. Pritchett, I don't know if you might remember any of the stories from back down in North Carolina, any of the clubs that you guys hunted with, or some of the times you had.
Yeah, for a while there were about maybe 4 or 5 of us that were faithful members. We would meet on like Friday afternoon, and at times it appears that we were wasting our time because we would start out the meeting, there weren't enough people to have a quorum, then eventually there would be a bunch of us that would show up before the meeting ended, so we would have a meeting. We have a gentleman by the name of Wells. He was a retired military person, and he would casually intervene the club meetings, and then eventually Morgan, Bookie, Mance, and myself, we would show up. And as I said before, it appears that we were just wasting our time, but as time went on, there were more people who joined up with the club. So we eventually got to be about 8 active members.
Now, did you all take trips down to visit other clubs? I understand there's a few stories about some of the socializing you all used to do.
Well, I'm not the person that is an authority on what we used to do when we went out of town to hunt, because we didn't have enough people to really have a real hunt club. But the club down in Winton, North Carolina, would invite us down on hunt seasons to hunt with them. And all of the kills that they would have while we were there, they would make sure that we had enough venison to bring it home. So eventually, after going there for such a number of times, they would tell us, or at least the hunt master, his name was Archer, he told us that unless you guys join the club, you don't need to come back. We don't want you guys just to come down during the hunt season. We want you to become members. And that club was quite large. It had, I never saw the assembly of those fellows, but it appeared to be pretty close to 25 or more people that would show up to hunt. And they had some interesting hunts. I was hoping that I wouldn't experience a tragedy on the first hunt that I went on. The hunt master would put most of the people from the Washington Outdoor Sportsmen Club in an area that they knew there would be no deer coming through, but they wanted to make sure that we didn't see deer coming through, so they would always put us out there on the outskirts to make sure that the deer didn't come through. But it just happened on one occasion. We were hunting, and there was one of the gentlemen he was new on the hunt, and he started deer come through the woods, and he misfired his gun from his stand. But he then ran towards the direction where the deer was going, and we almost had a tragedy right there because those fellows were on their stands, and if they saw a deer come through, it wasn't. I guess they wouldn't have enough time to recognize that the deer or actual hunter was in the woods. So we almost had one of the gentlemen killed because he left his stand. So. There were other tragedy incidents like that, of course. I do remember on one of the hunts, one of the fellows did get killed out there, but for the most part, the deer hunts were successful.
Anybody remember how it is that we came to hunt the Virginia property of Reverend Lewis Minor?
At the time we were I can sort of like figure what I know.
Okay, sure.
At the time when we were still trying to build the hunt club up in D.C. Washington club, we had only a few members, but one of the gentlemen that was in the club was a relative was a bookie, and his family lived down where the club went to hunt every year. Eventually,
Thank you.
Reverend Minor was the person that let us hunt on his property, but Bookie and I think there were some other people who sort of happened to introduce us to Minor, and we hunted there for quite a number of years.
And that was in Louisa County,
Yeah.
Virginia. The town, I think it was Mineral, was it?
Yes.
Just say anything else?
Yes.
Oh yes. How we was introduced to this land? My wife's cousin, his name was Tex, Eugene Tex. His ancestors was raised down there. And so we was talking one day, and he said, "Yes, I got some. Well, we got some land down that way. And so if y'all want to hunt, he said, I'll be glad to let y'all hunt on that land. But I want to also hunt on that land also. But in the meanwhile, we didn't know he wanted to hunt. We didn't know that he was a hunter. So he carried us down there one Saturday, texting all of us, and Cox and so forth, all the old club members. And so he introduced us to his relatives down there. And so after introducing us to the club, to the member of his family, He said that the family said, we will give you permission to hunt on our land, but you have to take good care of it. And we said, yeah, that's no problem. And so from that thing on, we started hunting on that land.
We had a lot of good experiences down there hunting in Virginia on Lewis Minor's property.
Yes,
I
my
know
property.
there's some folks over here, Victor Hardiman and Bill Johnson could probably tell a few stories about their experiences over there hunting on Reverend Minor's land.
Well, as I recall, the law says you can't hunt over a baited piece of property.
Can't do what?
Can't hunt over a baited area. And I was right in the pile of a big pile of corn already been shucked. I was not aware of that because I walked to the site, or they pointed me to the site. It was pitch dark at night, you know, early morning. And so I found me a nice place to bed down after I kind of surveyed the area. I had no idea all this corn was out there in front of me. I mean, it was a whole lot of corn. And when the man came up, I knew he was coming up because I could hear him walking through the woods. And he was walking and walking and walking. And what does he want? He's not hunting, he's just walking. Come to find out, he wanted to know who I was, and wanted to see my hunting license. And did I know I was hunting over a baited area in this field? I said, what baited area? I don't see anything baited. He said, there it is right out here, I'll show you. So I was in a little dugout place. I guess that's one of the reasons I couldn't see it, because the stuff was over a little hill. So he asked me to walk with him, and he could prove that I was hunting over a baited field, and he planned to charge me for it, and did. But that was the end of that story. I'd never been arrested in my life. And here I was, 40 years old, being arrested for the first time. And then when they read all my rights and stuff to me, they said I had to appear in court. I said, oh Lord, what are they getting ready to do to me now?
Just for that. Wow.
And they fix it up for you and get you somewhat intimidated because, well, certainly me, because I'd never been arrested before. And these guys kind of meant business. They were pretty serious guys. The first guy came by himself, and then his buddy eventually came up and joined him. And so he walked me out to the field, charged me, and wrote the papers up and gave them to me, and that was it. I looked around, half hour later, here comes Alex and walking up the field with another officer.
Oh my
It popped out at me.
Alex and Billy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And the closer you got, I could determine you had something in your hand, but I didn't know what you had when I first saw you. He says, well, I want all you guys come on over here to the car. So we had that little conference and wrote us up, and that was the end of it until we had to go to court. Did we have court dates the same?
No.
Oh, I was by myself.
I was the only one that didn't have to go to court.
Okay.
So when Billy and I went into the woods, we were in a different area than you were.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You were down in the honey hole.
we went down the honey hole.
Right.
So I went to the left, and Billy, had a tree stand climber that he went on up in this tree, and I went on down. And I heard, I guess probably an hour later or so, all the sirens going on, and I was like, wow, that must be a pretty big fire, or somebody had a big accident. And then it got quiet, then I heard more sirens and stuff, and earlier, Billy shot twice. And so I was waiting we used to have little radios, and I was waiting for Billy to tell me, what was going on. And finally, you know, we had a certain time we would come out of the woods, and I come out and come on down and started going over to where Billy was, and I said, I heard you shoot. I heard you shoot twice. I said, where is it? He said, well, there's one over there and there's one over there. So I thought they were deer.
Oh.
And they were turkeys. So I said, oh man. He said, did you see the flock? I said, yeah, I saw the flock, but I didn't think you shot at turkeys because they aren't in season.
Billy said, shoot.
He said, well, you know, I shot them.
Gotta have some dinner.
So I said, Billy, did you hear all those sirens? He said, I don't know what in the world all that is. He said, but there's a lot of sirens. So we come walking up, and I said, well, you know, you got your backpack, because Billy always carried a lot of stuff in the woods. He had a backpack and whatever, his coat. And so I said, I'll carry the turkeys. And so we get down and come up the creek bed and go over the bottom and climb over the fence at the cow pasture. And I said, Billy, you hear this car sound like a car coming up out of the woods. And I look over my shoulder. I said, Billy, it's a game warden. I said, don't look back, don't look back. I'm carrying the turkeys, and as soon as he went past a tree, I just dropped him. And I said, keep walking. So we keep walking, and he coming up along the fence side, and he took that Bronco or whatever it was down
Bronco,
into the woods.
Yeah.
Green Bronco.
Yeah, big green Bronco.
So he pulls up, and you know, as polite as they always try to, you know, how you doing, guys? Oh, fine. He said, you guys got anything you need to tell me? And we look at each other. He says, now you all can just start telling me now, otherwise I'm gonna find out anyway. And that's the stuff you see on TV now.
In real life now.
So he said, look like y'all dropped something back there. So he said, do you want to tell me what it is now, or do I need to go find out? And he said, I don't really, I want you all to just tell me. So he gets distracted because another car's coming. It's another police, you know, game warden. He gets out. He said, I think something's back there. So he goes back and brings the two turkeys up. And so he's like, okay, you know, guys just start telling me the story. So the guy says, well, why don't you come over here? So they separated. So before they could get too far, Billy said, I shot the turkeys. He said he didn't have anything to do with it. I shot them. Guy said, well, let me see your gun. He took his gun. He said, loaded? No. Smelled his gun. Yeah, your gun's fired. He said, give me yours. No, your gun's not fired. He says, well, I'm going to have to take your gun. He said, are you serious? He said, I got to take your gun. That's evidence. So anyway, make a long story short, we get tickets. Well, Billy gets 2 tickets, and I get 1 ticket, but it was pretty hefty. And he told me I didn't have to appear in court. I could just pay the fine because I was basically an accomplice. The guy looked at the turkeys and says, man, this is just a snack for my son. So they didn't let us take the turkeys. But one thing I'd like to bring up, my grandfather, Robert, he had been trying to get me to join the hunt club for years. Probably when I was in high school. And you know, I grew up around the Washington Outdoor Sportsman Club. I'd be sitting at the top of the stairs and watching them play cards and, you know, having a good time. And he asked me for years, and of course, as I was growing up, I wasn't thinking about hunting. I was hunting the skirts on the street. You know, so he stopped asking me for a while, and then one day, you know, I'm much older, and Grandpa says, you know, how come you don't want to join the hunt club? And I said to him, I said, well, I'll go to one of your meetings, and he will start it. He's like, you serious? I said, yeah. So I go to one of the meetings, and that's probably, what, 25 years ago now?
Yeah, long
And I go to the meeting, and my whole purpose really for going was to be with my grandfather more.
Right.
And I knew that was something he enjoyed. He liked the hunt club. He loved the guys. Because a lot of you all were neighbors. Archie lived around the corner.
Mhm.
Mr. Mance lived around the corner. Mr. Jones lived next door to Mr. Mance.
Mhm.
So they were all within a block radius of each other.
That's right.
And I grew up around all of those guys.
Cox lived.
But it has been a fun time being with the guys, and you know, the history is become now a little important for us. When I joined, I loved what, you know, you guys were trying to do and continue to do, and it got harder and harder as time went on. You know, patronizing, you know, black establishments. You know, not that you didn't want to go to other establishments, but we knew the importance of helping other minority establishments along and keeping the money in the city, the D.C., you know, District of Columbia, which all of you all loved and grew up in yourselves. My grandfather would always invite me to, when I was old enough, to come to the Valentine's dinners that the club
Oh, yes,
had.
yes, yeah.
And for years, different girlfriend probably each time, but for years, we would go to the Howard University had the restaurant, and they had jazz, and on Valentine's Day or close to Valentine's Day, and I thought it was pretty cool. These folks out here partying, man, but the friendship, the fellowship that you guys had really, you know, touched me, and I enjoyed it. You know, even though I never, you know, had gone to a supper club kind of environment at that time, but I'm like, man, these folks partying up there. And so it was an experience that was a lot of fun. And Grandpa, thank you for finally.
Yeah.
I saw the light.
Yeah, I'm glad of it too.
And because of it also, we're
Get a hold of it,
buddies.
you love it.
You know, Al grew running the streets and was hanging out with my grandpa.
Yeah.
And if my memory serves me, at one of the meetings we started talking about when the club started, and if I'm not mistaken, I have down that the club was started in the 1950s.
That's what I was told.
And I think it was like 55 or 57.
Somewhere around
And if it was 55, I wasn't even born. If it was 57, I was a couple months old. But I think what we're doing today is on the road to trying to memorialize the club, its importance that it had in the, you know, the community.
Victor, you've been kind of quiet over there. I know you've got a few things to say. Now, Victor was in the club well before I got in the club, and I'm sure you got a few stories.
Well,
He's the Frank Buck of the club, right?
I'm sorry.
Frank Buck of the club.
How did you how did you join the club? How did you come to join the club?
I was a target practice, used to shoot, make my own ammunition. A lot of my friends even called me a blackneck. But anyway, when I met Betty Raggins, who was my wife eventually, she introduced me to her father, John Henry, who was a member of the club at the time, and mentioned that you know, you might like Victor because he likes to shoot. Well, the old man said, "Boy, do you hunt?" I says, "No, sir. Would you like to learn?" And as a grown man, I started hunting with my to-be father-in-law. We hunted with some clubs in Virginia, and eventually I joined the Washington Outdoor Sportsmen Club because they were having a meeting over at his house that night, and I joined the club then. But I had hunted a couple times up in George Washington National Forest, which is about 1 million acres, and Thomas Jefferson's about 500,000. A little story about something that happened up there. Billy Joyner and I and his son and another guy that I was in the Marine Corps with, we were out scouting one time, and I was, of course, carrying a 44 Magnum, and I was in the back, bringing up the rear. Billy's son walked up on a rattlesnake. Nobody had a gun but me, and I heard the rattler, And I politely moved to the side a little bit, and about then I had my 44 cocked, and I blew the hell out that route. Because there was no way we were gonna get Billy's son back to Docker.
Yeah.
We were way out in the boondocks.
Mhm.
But going back to the time of joining with the club, I think one Saturday, that Saturday that you guys got busted down there, the game warden did come down there by me, and in that big, what was it, Suburban or whatever it was, and he walked down there and asked to see my license and everything, and I asked him why I was hunting that, and I said, well, about 300 yards down through the woods. Wasn't quite back out to the road yet, but we walked. I said, you want to walk back down there? He says, yes. So he walked back down there with me. I showed him. He looking around. He couldn't find anything, so he had checked my rifle, shotgun out, and checked my license, and let me go on back up there where everybody else was at. But the state troopers had the road blocked and everything else, and like Alex and him saying, you think it was a drug raid more than and a bus about some deer hunting. But they're serious about the deer hunting, and some people don't believe that you can get about $100 citation for not having a plug in your shotgun. They will check, and if you don't have that in there, they will give you a $100 citation. I remember the game warden talking to us one day. He said, gee, that damn boy shot my daggone decoy twice from the road. And one of them old boys down there, he shot it. The decoy had all the technology down, but it was a camcorder. And he blew the hell out of his camcorder. And of course, he confiscated the man's shotgun, he impounded his truck, and locked him up. They don't do that for a drug deal. But that's what they will do when you're illegally hunting. I don't know if Lynch and I may have not ever said this one time. There was a couple of things real quick. Bridget, you and Lynch and I was down there hunting. Nobody else down there but three of us one Saturday. And it was early, maybe about 10 o'clock. Deer comes along, I shoot the daggone buck, put him down. David and Pritchard come over, we working on trying to get we're gutting the deer out. Come another damn deer. He didn't even notice us. But we done laid out guns down. We ain't even messing with that. And what did he do?
Yeah, he's a spectator just like that. Just like we are dressing the deer.
So the deer stood there watching you all right?
Not necessarily, but he went just roaming around, looking sideways at us.
Yeah.
And then eventually he went on down the wood. But the thing about it is, we had unloaded our guns.
Yeah,
and we all had them laying on the ground. And then here come the deer up like he's looking over our shoulders while we were dressing, field dressing the deer that you had just killed. So that was hilarious. It was something. It was a beautiful day, though.
It was.
Beautiful.
What the biggest buck I ever got down there, I got it mounted down there in the house down. But we were down there hunting on miners' property, and the deer was running, and I shot him with the shotgun. I could see him jerk and move, and I waited a while before I went to find him, but I couldn't find him. And I was pissed. Coming out the woods at lunchtime, walked a little different way, and there the hell he was. Walked right up on him. And Billy to this day will joke with me about it. You didn't get excited or nothing. But this is one, I don't know if Dave ever told y'all about this. And I think Dave and I might as well tell it now. I don't think we ever said anything to anybody about it, because I think at the time we said we weren't nobody gonna believe us. Dave and I was down there hunting, and it had got late in the evening, and about dusk, and that barbed wire fence down there by the old yellow house run down there between miners and property. Dave and I was crossing that barbed wire fence. We hadn't seen a deer all day, and it was about dusk, and we was just standing there shooting the breeze. And all of a sudden, it was like an electronic field of electric. went around Dave and I. And we looked at it, what the hell is this? We ain't seen nothing, but it was like electric. Not a little bit of electric, but a lot of electric. And we couldn't figure out what it was. So we went on and talked about it a little bit, walking on back to my truck. I think I drove down that day. And we had come on out, left Miners property, went on down Garland's Road, the gravel road there, and turned back up on the main blacktop road, heading back out. And it was almost dark. My headlights was on. And we had not been drinking, and we don't do drugs. These two skeletons, literally, not like you see in the movies, ghosts, skeletons, were about 12 feet up in the air, and wasn't nobody pulling the wires and nothing, went across in front of us. And Dave and I slammed on brake. Dave and I said, did you see that? You saw it. But to this day, I don't think we said anything to nobody about that.
David still ain't saying that.
Not on and up? You're not on and up?
He's just smiling and shaking his head.
You just said you wasn't gonna bring that up.
David's not trying to be in a asylum suit or something.
I had to bring this up because I know we said this has been over 20 years ago, but I could not let this go.
So today is just the beginning of us pulling together the historic information, trying to archive it. I see Victor brought information. Some of your stuff dates back to 1966. I know I have information that's probably in the 70s, 80s. But I think it's a good beginning. And if we could do this a few more times, it would be fun. Ed is one of our newer members. Awad Morgan. Awad, unfortunately, got the dates mixed up. He had an exam today. He's a financial advisor and had an exam that he thought it was the meeting was set for the 12th, for tomorrow. So he apologized. But he, and I credit Awad, Awad Morgan joined our club, and I brought him in the club. I met him through my sister.
Who's this?
Awad Morgan. And Awad was just kind of like me. He hunted from his native land in Sudan when he was a kid, but not with modern firearms and things like that here in the States. So he joined the club, and Awad reminds me a little bit, because when I went from never ever having a gun, owning a gun, to as Archie mentioned and Bill Johnson mentioned, I went from hunting the woods locally to I hunted Africa, not Africa, but that's where I want to go. Hunted Wyoming, Texas, New Mexico.
Great North Woods, huh?
British Columbia,
You
Vancouver
really
Island,
got
British
into it,
Columbia.
didn't you? You really got into it.
So we have guys in the club that are just fishermen, which is how I originally was only going to be. And so Ed, we're glad Ed's here with us, because he is one of the guys in our club. He's one of us. So you can tell fishing stories from time to time too now. I can tell you how to get sick. But and I was really glad that you said you could make it, because I think it shares or lends to a lot more of what we were about in the beginning and where we are today. As we struggled, and I'm sure other black hunt clubs struggle, because it's hard to find black men and women that want to hunt, want to spend the time in the woods. You know, the kill isn't the thing for me anymore. And I've learned some in my old age from David, because I used to admire how David could sit in a stand and have deer all around him all day, and it didn't bother him when he came out of the woods that he didn't shoot. And we would look at him and just shake our head. But David, at the end of the season, if the opportunity was there, he was taking meat home. And he hasn't changed today.
Oh,
You know, and
okay.
to the point where now I don't shoot anything. I used to shoot anything and everything. And I would shoot in the double digits every year. You know, I like shooting.
Oh, yeah.
And David knows I like shooting at distances, so but now I can sit in the woods and enjoy myself. I think when Bill, you showed up, and when we pulled up and you asked me, I said, had I shot anything yet?
Yeah.
'Cause you know, by now I probably have
That's right.
6 or 7 deer on the ground.
Right.
Is that how you started the war though?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I became his mentor. But I mentioned to you, I had that 4-pointer. I mean, well, he's at 8, but he was a youngin. Walked past me, and I
That
was
wouldn't
like,
have happened 10 years ago, right?
"Oh, that wouldn't happen 10 years ago." I can sit there and enjoy and watch the foxes and the groundhogs, and it's pretty
So
cool.
how did you feel when you killed your first deer?
My first kill actually was about maybe 10 miles from here, with a black powder. And the first time I shot anything, and I was by myself, never had gutted a deer yet. And the only person I could think of that would call, you all brought up Kirby. My brother-in-law Kirby was in the club at one point, and I called him, and he came and helped me gut that deer out. And from that point on, I gutted the deer, but he gave me the instructions. And from that point on, man, I was shooting, killing, and gutting.
That's amazing. The first one you killed, you were by yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You know how I felt after we got my first deer? The only thing I could think about was all the work that was involved.
Now the real work
So
starts.
I'm gonna tell
Right.
him.
Right. There was a lot of work involved in there. First of all, you gotta try to get him out of the woods. And then after you get him out of the woods, you then got to register him. Then after you find some place to register it, you then take it back, and some of the people you got to have to find people to help you to skin them out.
All right, Washington Outdoor Sportsmen's Club, past, present, future. Just happy to be able to spend some time with some folks who have made a lot of history, shared a lot of knowledge, spent a lot of good times. It's not over yet. Washington Outdoor Sportsmen's Club moving forward. We'll see you next time.
That old logo.
Talking to you now.